Joy and blissfulness are within. That's related to pleasure. How sad is it we look for things for people to make us happy? We look for our joy and happiness. That's why we're miserable. Desire is the cause of all suffering. You're sitting there, and if you're suffering now, 90% of it's related to our problem with people. If only they would be nice to me, if only they would behave right. They were, toxic. They were this. We didn't realize, was I a good son? Was I a good husband? Was I, we have to look at ourselves. And when other people are acting what they call toxic, right? We only can look and smile when we have this spiritual awakening. We come from this universal God consciousness. We feel that energy. We feel the compassion. When I'm compassionate for people, I feel better. But you know what? When I'm compassionate for people, they feel better. So either way, it's what's called a win-win situation. So the only answer is this spiritual awakening. In Bill's story, and also with the doctor's opinion, Dr. Silkworth said there's only one solution. We do readings from that many times, and I know everybody loves it. We go to the big book. It's all in these steps in the big book. All the religions, all the philosophies of the world are right here. All the answers are right here. The guy didn't have to climb Mount Everest. He said, look, he could sit on his couch and be just as happy as the guy who climbed Mount Everest. You realize I'm starting to go towards that again. I have to mention it every meeting, and this is no exception. So where you're going to hear about the guy who climbed Mount Everest by the end of the meeting. So anyway, let me see here. What do I have here? Right here, right now. Right here, right now. Don't wait. Pick up these simple spiritual tools laid at our feet on page 25. It talks about that. Have that change perception, attitude adjustment. We can have it right now. Look. You could sit there you talk about meditation, right? I want to tell you something I always talk about meditation. It's good as far as it goes. And also we have prayer, the grace. We're going to read that in a minute about just that amazing grace. What is it? So people say, well, what is that amazing grace? What is this God consciousness? It's just realizing the truth. The truth will set you free. All joy and happiness is within, right? Not in the sorry, sorry world. So when we know the true from the false, we don't have to worry anymore about finances, about people. What about 9-step promises say? Fear of people, economic insecurity go by the wayside. Right now, if you just relax, get centered. They talk about the chakras in the body. Just feel sometimes they have body scanning where you just feel yourself sitting in a chair wherever you are, on a couch, whatever. Just feeling your breath. And then all of a sudden what happens is the energy flows up. The reason is because it is always there. The joy and happiness is always inside of us. It just is. Again, I use the example of a little child. They're always happy. When you were born, we were born being happy, right? We know. We took it upon ourselves like, in the Garden of Eden when they took a bite of the first apple. We took it upon ourselves to the ego, the self, that it had to be about us. That we're the world. We're carrying the world around on our shoulders. We could sit back, relax, and enjoy it. And all you have to do is look. You don't have to try. God consciousness. We have these steps. Spiritual of the universe. Bring that in. The energy around us, the Tao, all these things, these philosophies. Again, they're all in the steps. I dare you, and I say this at every meeting. You pick up any religion, any religious book, Far Eastern, Western philosophy, any of the great philosophers, and I tell you, everything that you read in there is in these steps in this program. And the great news about that is that people come in these meetings and they go, I can't believe I'm sitting here in this type of meeting, and this is, and no. This is the greatest thing that ever happened to people. That's why billions of people are spiritual and believe in religions. It's the way out, right? The way out is the way in. It's all in here. The God consciousness, right? When we're God conscious, we see the spirituality in the universe, in everybody and everything. That's why we no longer have problem with people. We have compassion, understanding, and love. On page 118 in Two Wives, right? It talks about that. They're called the watchwords. If you want to go to page 118 in the middle of the page. Love and tolerance, right? Here, women whose lives were destroyed and their husbands, they all kinds of problems with the family and financial ruin and all of these things in their lives. But what did they learn? They learned how to be happy, joyous, and free, right? That's what we, but then even Bill says, let's go to, first of all, let me read. Okay, here we go. This is on, I'm going to go right to We Agnostics here. Here it is, page 54. Go to page 54. So on page 54, the first sentence says, did we not have confidence in our ability to think? Confidence, our ability to think. You know how much crazier it is in this society? Listen to this. Our society is all about that. We grew up with the success from money and all these material things, the scientific age. How crazy is that? And Dr. Silkworth said all the scientists and all the brains at the time and the doctors couldn't figure out the problem with the spiritually bankrupt people, alcoholics when they come, and compulsive overeaters, all of us with these things. Did not, what was that but a sort of faith? So, if you come in here and say, I don't believe in the higher consciousness of God, we had faith all the time. This is what we agnostics says. It says we had faith. Yes, we had been faithful, abjectly faithful to the God of reason. How's that working out for you, right? How's your daily lives trying to, that's from this self, the ego. It separates us. You realize we become isolated in our addictions. Okay, we'll take the food as usual, as I talk about. When you're in the food, you're in the flesh, you're in the materialism. The five senses on page 85, we may read from that, talks about the sixth sense. Or how about being rocketed into the fourth dimension? The other dimensions are time, space, the past, the future. Well, we're in the past. How narrow is that? How crazy is that? We're planning the past. You ever plan the past? I do it all every day. I'm planning the past. How about the future? Right? I'm regretting the future. It never happened yet. I'm still regretting it. So we could be rocketed. Right now, if you're upset, look, you're upset right now. I'm telling you, I know what you're thinking about. I always say to people when they say to me, hey, Bob, I'm upset, or I hear them, I says, well, I know what you're thinking about. You're thinking about the self, right? You're thinking of the past and the future, instead of that's really narrow. And you could be so happy and joyous and understand and see nature, walk out the door. Don't worry about the neighbor. Don't worry about your work or whatever, because that will take care of itself. When we get really centered, then that's a way of strength. If anybody tries, we go out there, go to work, wherever you are, tries to push your buttons, it says in here we can only sit here and smile. We're going to read from that in a minute. We had the God of reason. So in one way or another, we discovered that faith had been involved all the time, right? Faith had been involved all the time, right? We had faith, but in the ego, the self. This is, again, it's false. The truth will set you free. No, everything that the ego is going to take you, every place the self. Like I say, my problem is Bob. I always say if I have a problem today, I'm the problem, right? And I love this one. And worrying works because 95% of things I worry about never happen. This self, step 2 says what? We had to be restored to sanity. Step 1, I always say this whole program is step 1, right? You want to have that spiritual awakening. But no, people could be in this program 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And I'm not sure if I'm listening to them, and you could verify this if they read step 1. Well, you're sitting there, if you're sitting in the ego, the self and your problems, what does step 1 say? We're powerless. Step 1 says we're powerless. And it goes on to say, we found too, on page 54 in the big book, that we had been worshipers. What a state of mental flesh that used to bring on us. Had we not vicariously worshiped people, sentimental things. Listen to this. When we're worshiping people, making them a higher power, sentimental things, right? Can you imagine getting back into some religions, look, some religions don't even believe in listening to certain music unless it's inspirational music. Because listen to the music we listen to. Listen to the movies we go to. They're talking about, the depression and getting in itself and the blues. The music's even called the blues, right? So that's where we go. And that's what we worship. Things, money, and ourselves, right? Ourselves. Then we had a better motive. So it goes on to say, it talks about had we not looked at a flower. Look at the next sentence there. So sometimes you've seen this, like a person will get up and they'll hold a flower up. Yes, all the answers are in, or the sound of a gong. All the answers are in there. When we get centered and we're in the present, because it brings you to the present, seeing the beauty, talking about beauty and things. Look,